Before we get started, I want you to know that there are spoilers in this video for Star Trek Picard No-Win Scenario. My absolute favorite thing about this whole thing was after the line, "Did you just throw an asteroid at that ship?" This is something that I have had kind of a soapbox about. My wife can attest to this, that when they are always in a situation where their shields are at 2% and the enemy has their shields at full and our weapons are down, and then they ram them. And I'm thinking, if they can ram them with their shields up, why not just throw a rock at them? This time they did. Hooray! We're going to talk about the rest of this episode after this. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and in No-Win Scenario, there are a number of very good things that I really liked about this particular episode. First of all, we get the entire backstory now of Captain Shaw. He comes out as being just kind of a nasty fellow and not impressed by anybody. And you can see that there's certain captains that probably just have a nasty attitude. And he doesn't deny that. But in a monologue that's given in about the middle of this episode, where they appear to all be dying, and so it's a good time to kind of bare your soul. Also, he's under quite a few pain relievers that the ship's doctor or crusher gave him. He goes into a monologue and describes that he was part of the Wolf 359 armada that was utterly destroyed by the Borg, and a heart-wrenching story of a escape pod that had 10 places when there were 50 people that needed them. He had some sort of survivor's guilt, which also informed his reason that he did not want to put the ship in danger to begin with. It was his reason that he didn't have much of a admiration for Picard, or Riker for that matter. It was the fact that he refused to call Seven of Nine by her more recent name and insisted on referring to her as Commander Annika Hansen. All of these things were a way of pointing out his disdain for the Borg. Obviously, in a conversation that he had with Seven during the episode, he really was very impressed with her abilities and her spunk, shall we say, but certainly wanted to compartmentalize that away from the idea that she had once been a Borg. And Riker, too, is given a little bit of context in the way he's been acting. In the previous episode, Picard accuses him of being too cautious because of his having lost his son. And Riker says, "You've gone too far." But this time he says, "No, you were right, Jean-Luc. It was that after all." And the problem is that, as the way Deanna, of course, can sense feelings, he said, I haven't had any. I've been numb. And the loss of his son has changed his whole personality, honestly, to the point to where he is not the person he used to be. He gets no joy out of life. And part of it comes from the fact that there is a lack of belief that there's anything after death. He said, "When we put him in the ground, it was darker than the darkest places we've ever been." And without this idea of something that goes on after we die, whether we become one with nature, whether we go to heaven, whether we have some kind of afterlife or change of dimension or something, where is the hope and where is the reason to live? And Riker seemed to have lost that. He had lost himself and wasn't certain of how to come back. By the end of the episode, he's communicating with Deanna. Doesn't say that he's there yet, but realizes through this near-death experience that they've all had that there is some joy that he can find in being the instrument of saving people, of doing what he does best. And that's one of the lines that they use when they gather together in the observation deck and say, we've just got to do what we do best. Now, we find that the changelings have a little extra thing. This may have been explained during DS9, and I'm afraid that I've never seen the totality of DS9. The local market here ran DS9 at a different time virtually every week, and sometimes if the ball game went over, we didn't see it at all. And so some of the details of changelings during the Dominion War has eluded me. But Shaw mentions, and he turns out that he is the person to help save the ship, of course, because he's the only person that knows about the older style of engineering that can allow them to override some of the systems from engineering. Then he is also the person who knows how to explain to Seven how to recognize a changeling when they assume the identity of someone they know. Because they can say, he said, I can tell you that you're a good officer and I was wrong about you. And he said, that's something that I would never say, but that a changeling is a changeling taking my identity might. And so she was able to find this out through LaForge coming into engineering. And while she wasn't supposed to be there, she says, well, I'm here because I know how to help. And Seven says to her, then who am I? And she says, well, you're Commander Hansen. And she immediately phases her because she knows that the friendship that she has had with LaForge would indicate that she would be called Seven and not that. The captain is kind of taken aback by the fact that she knew so readily how to do this and explained to him that she'd call me Seven. I thought that was a nice little touch there on how to identify the changelings that came in. Now, the only thing that bothered me is in the time of Shaw's monologue and Picard's encounter with Jack, they have the holodeck lit up. And I said to my wife at that point, how is it that, they've turned off power to everything, but the holodeck is still working? And they did put a line of dialogue in there saying, oh, it has its own batteries. So it's either a very low power kind of thing where you can just stick your own battery in it and run that and let the rest of the ship go dark. It seems that it would take up more energy than you would think, more computing power than you would think. But we'll accept that as a reasonable explanation for it, that in times of when we think we're not going to make it, maybe there should be a place for people to gather, and it makes some sense, I suppose. So that's my thoughts on Picard. I'd like to know what you think about it. Why not make a notice below? And also, if you've not subscribed or rung the bell or clicked a like button or whatever you haven't done yet, please do it. That'll help the channel. And we'll be back with more Picard next week. And all the other things that we do the Star Wars stuff, we do the Star Trek stuff, we do the Doctor Who stuff, and every once in a while we'll find something else. But right now I have quite a few videos going this week, so we're probably not looking for anything until one of these shows goes off the air. But for the moment, we seem to be pretty well occupied. Retirement has never been so busy. But thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time. Don't go far.